discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, this video is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering you a free audiobook with a 30-day free trial membership. All you need to do is go to audibletrial.com/BG Unlocked. The link is in the description below, and now enjoy the video. Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and I'm doing a discussion for Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon. Now, a couple things. One, this is kind of a first impressions discussion more than anything because I have not completed the campaign for Tainted Grail. So bear that in mind with a lot of things that I'm about to say. And what I'll probably do is after the entire campaign of the core set, I will do a kind of like a final discussion going over my thoughts of over the campaign. So I'll try to keep this as spoiler free as possible because the second discussion will most likely have a bunch of spoilers. So, with that in mind, I gotta say, this game is fucking phenomenal. This game is so cool. It hits on all cylinders for me right out of the gate, and I kind of knew it would because it's Awakened Realms, and they are just... Are they the best company? They might be the best company. No. That's going a little far because they haven't been around as long as the others, but I gotta say, every single one of their games, from Lords of Hellas, has been like top 10 like contenders since they've been out, and it's amazing because they're a Kickstarter company essentially. Like their first game that I backed was This War of Mine, phenomenal game. Then I missed out on Lords of Hellas, but I got to play it, and it was okay. Like I didn't hate it, but I played it with 3, so maybe that was a problem, but it fell short. But then Nemesis is amazing. Then there's those are really the only. Then this one is just awesome. But then Etherfields looks awesome. Their other one that they're about to go on Kickstarter for, The Great Wall, looks awesome. I mean, and this is all speculation, but they just do so many things right that I gotta give them praise for that. Now, Tainted Grail is absolutely no different. Once I heard that it was going to be in like a dark fantasy Arthurian legends, I was immediately on board with that theme. And they definitely knew what to do with this kinds of thing. So the game, it feels kind of like Dark Souls in a way, and really it's because it's very dark, grim, medieval fantasy and set in like the King Arthur lore. And you have what's called these menhirs, which are which are kind of like your beacons. They're the ones that let you, if you activate them and light them, then they will shine the land, and then you'll place these location cards out in adjacent locations, up, down, left, right, and then diagonal. So that's kind of how you find them. And then as you keep exploring, then you want to activate more, which will expand more of the map. But then you have to make sure that you want to keep them lit, because then once they go out, then the cards go away and they shrink, and then you have to go activate them again. It's just, I mean, it's so cool. That's such a cool concept, and almost a thematically scary concept, because you have this what's called weirdness that is WYRD, that is kind of encroaching upon settlements, and people are, it's dark, it's awful. Like, you come across some horrific things, and they do a fantastic job with the writing to immerse you, so you are just engrossed in what's happening, especially with your characters. So like, your characters are all like, they're like the B team of they're not Knights of the Round Tables, but they knew the people who just kind of yeehawed out of there, I think, to try and figure out what's going on, or to find a way to save the land. But if what I've read so far is to give anything of that, there's probably a twist to that maybe King Arthur is like evil or something. I don't know. I have no clue. But nothing is good here. Everything's awful. Like, all the people are just surviving. They don't really care. Like, they care about their settlements and trying to look after one another with that. But even with that, like, I came across a settlement that is very suspicious, is kind of hostile, but I had an opportunity to kind of ask for help. And I just went, I'm like, hey, will you guys help me? And based off of my status, and hell, even if I had any reputation, so they kind of knew me for being kind of a good guy, so I'm glad I gained some reputation through that. I even had the opportunity to ask them for help. And based off where my food and wealth were, they're like, you're you're a little bit low. We'll see, and then you have to roll a die. So I like how the die is not like a end-all be-all for it. It's not just, okay, well, this is what it is, so sucks to suck. Like, you have opportunities to add to your roll, and then you go to a different chart, and it's like, okay, well, based off your roll with that, here's how they respond. So, so they kind of look after each other there, and then you just have these opportunities to change the landscape. Basically what I've been hearing with this game is that it's a mix of Seventh Continent and Gloomhaven. Well, both of those games are phenomenal, and I love both of them. So, of course, as soon as I heard that, I was like, yep, all in. I don't care, Tainted Grail. So, and that was verified by two highly respected reviewers. Rado said that, and Tom Vassell said the same thing. And I'm going to reiterate what they were saying because I would very much agree. Now, how is it like those? So Seventh Continent, this is kind of a survival game, not as harsh as Seventh Continent, I would say, but you do have to eat at the end of every day. So you have to eat one food, and if you do eat one food, then you regain all your energy, essentially your action points, and you lose a terror, which is really good because that terror track creeps up on you real quick. If you don't eat, then you move your energy down to 0, and once it's at 0, how much you regain is 4 instead of your regular 6. So, and that goes by really, really quick. Like hell, moving from one card to the next is an energy. So that's the survival aspect. Then you have your wealth, which is kind of another resource that you can manage. It's not necessary, but it's damn well, you might as well be using it. So then you have, of course, the cards. So this game doesn't have a board. It doesn't have anything like that. It has your location cards that have things on the back. So it's not like Seventh Continent where you have a jillion cards with like, oh wow, how many number 16s are there? Oh, 30, depending on which random one you pull out, it could change. Nothing against that. I love that about Seventh Continent, but it's that similar aspect of looking at the cards, and then the cards can change based off the actions that you took throughout the game. And there's what's called, I think they call them legacy cards. So whenever you go to pull one, you could pull a different one, and it could change the world around you. I think that's really cool. But there is a back to each of these that you get to. Okay, well, I will explore this. For one action, you flip it, and then based off, hey, do you have this status? Do you have this secret card? Do you have this ability? Are you this character? There's a bunch of checklists, which I think are fantastic. That it's like, okay, if you meet one of these, then you go to that verse in the book. If none of those, then you just do a generic, you can talk to people, you can check out the hut, you can steal from that lady, you can do stuff like that. And that's where I think they do take a different approach. They could have easily had a million cards that you just constantly swap out and see what happens there. But instead, what they did was fully fleshed out, beautiful artwork. Like it's very dark and grim, and I personally love that about it. But instead of having as many cards, like these are how many cards you get, which are still a lot. And mine are sleeves, so it's going to seem like I have more here. But there's cards here, and then you have what makes this even more of an adventure is this exploration book, which I'll get to in a sec. But that's kind of where they replaced all the cards for. They put a bunch of things that can happen in this exploration journal. So that's kind of how it reminds me of Seventh Continent, and like you don't use a deck of cards to represent your your survival, really, like your energy. You do have energy and stuff, and you have to manage yourself with food, which replenishes it. So that's kind of what reminds me of Seventh Continent. Now with Gloomhaven, it's interesting because playing Gloomhaven and then trying to compare it to this is like on a one-to-one note, they're nothing alike, except that, hey, you fight in this one. But the fact that there is an immersive world surrounding this based off choices that you do is similar to Gloomhaven as well. And kind of where I'm assuming people are making the parallels is the way combat works. So I gotta say, I actually love this combat more than Gloomhaven. And I love Gloomhaven's combat. I love the hand management aspect. I love the like the fact that the versatility that you have with your cards and basically how you use them and how each character's cards are completely different. Well, in this one, you have two sets of decks. You have your combat deck and your diplomacy deck. So first off, I gotta say I love the fact that there is both. There is room for both. Now, in my experience, diplomacy is not that heavily used. Who knows if that's going to be utilized more later on in the campaign or if in future expansions. But combat definitely seems to be a more, it's going to happen a lot more, which is fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. It is a very dangerous world that you're trying to traverse. But basically, you have an enemy and you're just trying to match symbols based off the attributes that you have. And I think that card play where you draw 3 and you pick which one you want to do, and you kind of make a sequential order of cards, and depending on your attributes, you're trying to make a meter, like, oh, hey, I need this many cubes to be able to succeed. I think that's a simplistic yet thematic way of actually representing combat. There's no luck. I mean, there is luck in the cards that you draw, but there's ways to even mitigate that. Like, you have abilities in here that's like, oh, if I match this up, I get to draw a card. And there's modifiers, like down here at the bottom of this one, it's a ×2. So if I play this one, and there's there's symbols that let you play it as an extra. It's like if you match that up with a link, it's like, okay, so I got that link, and I get to draw 2 more. Oh, yippee! And you can essentially keep playing extra cards to try and maximize your efficiency in combat. And the thing that I love most about it, besides that there's symbols and abilities within the connections, you also have card abilities that can trigger either when you play it or when your enemy attacks, or there's a time delay. So like my distraction is if the enemy attacks, if the enemy deals any damage, I lose that many cubes instead. So I can play that if I can afford to get rid of some cubes, but I can't afford to get a whole bunch of health hits. So it's like you will modify the strategies of your cards based off what you're fighting. So in one of the fights, there was like, it dealt a bunch of terror damage. So I was able to play cards that I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to take any wounds, so I'll be able to take terror. So you're allowed to be a little bit more risky in that sense. But going insane is also not good either. I love the also way that this is similar to Gloomhaven is you gain experience. I really emphasize that P. You gain experience, and based off that, you can spend 2 XP, and you can do this at any time throughout your day or at the end of the day. So it's like at the end of the day, advance your character by spending XP. So you don't have to wait till the end of a chapter. You can do it. Oh, hey, okay, well, it's the second time second day. I got some XP. I'll spend 2 of it, and you get to draw 3 cards off of your advancement deck that pertains to your character, and be like, okay, well, I will add this one, and you just shuffle it in. So your decks have to have a minimum of 15 cards, which I think that's really nice. It gives you a little bit more leeway, but you're able to remove cards that you're like, oh, this doesn't really fit my playstyle. Like, well, I'll probably hold battle cry, but I'll probably get rid of charge because that's not really that helpful right now, so I'll add this one based off the card that I got. But you have to have at least 15. That's very nice, because in Gloomhaven, your characters have to stay on a deck limit. If you have 10, you have to maintain 10, which is perfectly fine for Gloomhaven. But I love that aspect. I love that combat and diplomacy are similar rule-wise, but the way you go about them are a little bit different. Combat, you're trying to get cubes, and diplomacy, you're trying to play this tug-of-war battle against what you're trying to combat. So it's like, okay, well, I'm trying to convince this guard, and I have these, so I will basically. I'll do Mystic Calmness, which links these up, and based off that symbol on his card, that moves the track up in my favor. It's really, really cool. I kind of like that tug of war mechanic in games anyway. It adds a little bit of tension. But ultimately, my favorite aspect about the combat in diplomacy is because it's sequential and you play your cards like left to right, you actually kind of get a story of what you did to either win that fight or win that diplomatic debate by just the titles of the cards. Like, for example, I can play a card that says Battle Cry and then Charge, and it's just like, thematically, yeah, I screamed and then I charged at the animal. So, and then at the end, I played where is it? I did War Magic, so I just burned it alive after I charged, screamed, charged, and blew him up. Whereas one of these, it's like, okay, well, I did a commanding tone and then did some rhetoric, so I like call, hey, and then I started doing some rhetoric. So it's you get that even more engrossing theme with just something that typically I'm like, in a lot of role-playing games that I'm kind of like, this pulls me out of the theme. So the entire time I was enveloped in everything that was happening, all the things that I was reading and seeing and doing, hell, with even combat and all my actions, like, I felt like it was thematic. So they did such a great job with that. Like, I love looking at the artwork, and now the artwork is just, it seems kind of just that for the most part. Like you can still look at it, like this charred conclave. You're still able to look at it and be like, okay, this is probably what I'm going to be interacting with here. But unlike Seventh Continent, where a lot of it is visual and you can actually look at the card and be like, oh, there's a hidden number. And then you add stuff to certain stuff, and you have items, and then a lot of it's definitely more card-driven than interactive. This here uses a little bit of that and the exploration journal. So, gotta say, love the combat, love the diplomacy, love the searching, and just interaction with the cards. Now, something else that comes with the cards that makes this unique is the icons on it. And what I mean by that is some of it is like, okay, is a men here or there? Can you have dreams here? And what kind of settlement is this? So based off of those small icons, I'm really going to talk about the settlements and then the dreams. So the settlements is like, oh, if I go there, how are they going to react to me? Should I have high reputation when I go there, or is that not going to matter? So that's something to keep in mind, because the place you start at is a nice settlement, and there's according to the rules, there's very few of them there. Most of them will be angry, so you might have some high diplomacy, which is the whole reason why I picked the character that I picked. I wanted to try and go more of a diplomacy route, but it's good to know it's good to know that, like, since I picked him, obviously he has high spirituality and some caution, that he's not useless in combat, because then playing solo would be virtually impossible. So the next thing that I think is really, really unique and innovative is the dreams. So whenever you rest on an area with a dream location, you actually get an event of something that happens, and the dreams can be hints. They can be like hints of what to do in your quest. They can be just even more lore of what's going on in the story. So I remember the dream that I had in the tutorial, I was like very like intrigued by what the dream was about, that I was like, oh man, I kind of want to see, I want to know more about that. Same here, like, you're getting all these weird dreams, and you can also potentially have nightmares. If you are insane based off your terror, you have nightmares instead. Now the character I have to flip a coin, and if it's skull, then I have a nightmare. If it's the grail, then I just have the regular dream. So that just adds a little bit more elements to Tainted Grail, and a unique way of showing lore. So that's all fantastic, and I mean, let's just get right into it. That's like the exploration journal. So this is massive and such a step up from what, I mean, hell, this War of Mine has a really good journal, and I'm glad they did away kind of with their learn the game as you go. I know a lot of people like it, and it is nice that you can do that. But me as a player, I never really care. I want to know, because it's this war of mine is hard. Like, it's very hard. So I want to know everything about what I can do and not happen to find it later and be like, oh, that would have been nice, last couple hours we were playing. So, but their journal is still really good, and I like how they do it there, because unlike games like Tales of Arabian Nights, where that's the entire game, is just reading, like, basically we might as well just, like, read this thing to each other. Don't get me wrong, Tales of Arabian Nights is still a very fun and funny game every once in a while, but this War of Mine did in such a way that if you drew a specific card, then you had an event. It wasn't constantly happening. And at first I didn't like that, but then I grew to appreciate it, because then you weren't bogged down with just constantly reading, and you got to have those special events that made them even more special. Here, you have an action that you can do, which is explore the area, and depending on where you're at is where you go in the story for the most part. So if I went to the Charred Conclave, then I would just find, 104 in the book. And it's like, okay, yep, there's the Charred Conclave, and then there's 10 different things that can happen here. And then plus the dreams and nightmares. So, and depending on the decisions or if you're a certain character, if you're a certain reputation or something, then you can be like, okay, well, I'll do this. And sometimes you can even have, this is also really, really cool, is you can have specific secret events. There's a book of secrets at the back. I think that's what they called it. Yep, the Book of Secrets, which is a whole nother section that, depending on certain areas, it's so you didn't accidentally read them, you have to take these little markers and link up, like, where the skull is facing, and then where the arrows are pointing, that's the section you go to in the Book of Secrets, and that's a whole unique other thing that can happen depending on certain situations. So I think they have greatly improved on the exploration. This is where the core of this game lies. This is where your story is going to be and everything that's happening. And all this is kind of just flavor text and then the actual game part. So I loved it. Like, I went through, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I went to 6 out of the first 8 locations, and I felt like I barely touched anything. Like, there were still other areas that I didn't even go to. There were like 3 areas I didn't go to. One, I kind of only did one thing. I climbed a sword, and that was that. But there was way more to do in there, but I just couldn't do it. Trying to do minimal spoilers. I went to the 4 Dweller Mounds, and I tried to go and do a whole nother thing, and it ended up being completely wrong. And I remember Tom Vassell talking about how the game can lead you on these bunny trails that end up leading to nothing. I could definitely see how that would be frustrating, especially if this is kind of a survival game that you think you're heading in the right direction, and it's like, oh, nope, that was nothing. But for me, I think that's part of the exploration. It's like, even if it's at the end of the road, I just kind of want to see what this world has to offer more so than, okay, well, I'm trying to beat the story. Because where my initial negative of the game comes from, it's not even really that much of a negative, it's more of kind of, I'm just sad, is that the game has, I believe, 6 chapters. Hey everyone, normally I actually don't interrupt my own discussions, but I wanted to make a clarification that there are not 6 chapters. I don't know where I got 6 chapters, but there are like 15. So, so basically what I was saying about like, oh, only 6. No, 15's enough. 15, that's a lot. That's a lot of chapters. So ignore what I was saying about 6 chapters and pay attention to the rest. So enjoy the rest of the discussion. In the core rulebook, in the core set, and I cannot find where they're at. The 70 story event cards, and that, to me, that sounds like that means it's 6 games, but I don't know if that's the case. I don't know how long. Like, I only did chapter 1, and that went a lot quicker than I thought it would, but I was still immersed the entire time. Whereas like hell, maybe chapters 2 through 6 are like really long and engrossing, and there's way more that's going on, and then it maybe won't feel that way. But essentially, hell, even I can do chapter 1 again and go do other things with different characters and get even just different experiences, which is kind of what an RPG is kind of like. Like, the way I play video game RPGs is I'll finish it as one character, then I'll go back and try and play it as a different character and see the different interactions. And I fully believe that you can do that with this one. So the exploration journal is a blast. There's so much to explore. I love the way that they do it. How, hey, if you do this, then this takes you to a completely different section of the book. I love the secrets. That's how you hide so you don't accidentally read stuff, because that can definitely become an issue. So this game just, I mean, it's so good. It's so good. Like, I mean, production quality is amazing. I love also, this is a very small thing, but everyone gets a map. And by everyone, I mean me, because I'm playing this solo. But everyone would get a map. But the rules say that this was written over like a century ago, I think is what it was. So this may not even be accurate. So you have kind of a map. And I actually really like that. Like, you can look at it and be like, oh, hey, that's where Camelot is. So where would I be? Oh, there's Connacht. So now, if I want to head to Camelot, then I just kind of go that way, go to the right, and see if I want to make it there. And who knows if you can even do that. Like, I just went for the quests in Chapter 1. Who knows if the game is more branching than that. Because in 7th Continent, you just explore, and you are trying to lift a curse, but there's hardly a direction there. You have a vague map and kind of some storytelling along the way, but really you're just wandering around and following clues. Here, I'm wondering if you're just trying to go for the quest, or if you can go off this map and be like, okay, well, I just want to see what's at the crow's nest way up here and try and make it there. I don't know. Or if you should just follow the campaign and just see what the campaign has to offer, which is probably true. The other thing that the game offers is there are tasks that you can complete that are separate from quests. So you have your quest, which is your main thing, and then you have tasks, which are kind of your story, or your side quests. And the rules do talk about how technically you can beat the game without doing any of them, but you probably should, because, I mean, you get benefits. There's a bunch of like items here, so that you can get. Hell, I drew 2 items. I got fine garments as an armor and a rusty sword. And like, my fine garments are perfect for this character, and the rusty sword is not bad to have. You also have these secret cards that correspond to certain things that you do or things that happen within the story, that you get secret cards that, hey, now that I have this secret, depending on an encounter that I have, it could ask, hey, do you have this secret? And it says, if you do, then it's like, oh, go to this verse. And now you have a whole unique situation that you wouldn't have had without it. And the game also has these statuses. There are a bunch of them. Like, I felt like I was filling in a lot, but I filled out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I filled out 5 of them. And one of them was awful. I felt terrible for having it. And then the other ones were just, hey, now I have that. But it's like, ugh, like, ooh. Maybe I shouldn't have done what I did. But now that's a thing that my character has. And you have this save sheet, which I think is fantastic. You can just jot down some notes. You write down, okay, well, here's where your character is at. How many upgrades I have, where I'm at, where the menhirs are, quest dials. I mean, I don't have any. And then where some guardians are. Guardians are like special abilities, or not abilities, special like creatures that can roam around that you might have to fight and have to avoid. So didn't think that they would swamp me with that in the first chapter. But those are things that can pop up. It's so cool. And I mean, I can't really think of any negatives. I'm really trying here. Like, yeah, I really can't. So who knows? Maybe I might think of some at the at the end of the campaign or as I'm playing, you might hear me throughout the series just be like, oh, that's fucking dumb. But so far, I am just gobsmacked, and I am not disappointed at all by this game. And I had a feeling I wouldn't be, just because Awakened Realms they know how to make games that are just perfect for me. So, I mean, hell, even the beginning of the game, you read your character's like letter that was left by one of the A team, the Knights of the Round Table, I'm assuming, and that just engrosses you right off the bat. You're like, oh wait, what? Like, okay, well now I want to know more and try and figure out what's happening. So hopefully the story is kind of like where it's not like so Dark Souls that you're like, I have no idea what's going on. Time to watch 30 YouTube lore videos on what this is. That I highly doubt that'll be the case, but there might be a lot of things going on. Hell, I didn't even read any of like this stuff, the Almanac of Avalon. Like, I didn't even look through that, and I totally meant to, but it's like, oh hey, there's the Warriors Fair, so I can read a little bit about that and kind of like what that's about. Or there's the Hunter's Grove. Like, I went there in ages past. Only the Druids were allowed into the grove for a good reason, now forgotten. My brothers and sisters tried to do something about this savage cult, but any attempt to root it out was dangerous and futile. Nianti said that. The giant skull, or stagfather as it is called in nearby villages, is both impressive and unsettling. I wouldn't advise staying there for the night. Aubert. So it's like, yeah, hey, you had a chance to actually stay in the skull there, and it's like, well, if I had read this, then I probably wouldn't have done that. I don't think I did, but then that's kind of like in the south, it's broken up by regions. So the Charred Conclave, then who wrote Lord Yvain. What happened here was atrocious but necessary. Simple people need an enemy to blame for their ills, and the Druids were growing far too powerful. Well, what was going on? Like, my character's a Druid. Like, I want to know more about that. And then Connacht. So these are all written by the people that left, and so you can read things like that and just get more information on this. I love that that's a thing. So, oh yeah, so the rule book, I mean, the one thing that I remember some people saying was that this game's complicated. I don't think so. I think the game and the rulebook does a very, very good job at teaching you how to play. Unlike this War of Mine, where it's just kind of like, hey, follow this journal, and you'll learn secret things as you play by finding more rules within the exploration book. Here they actually give you a tutorial. Hey, follow this step by step. It'll teach you the basics. Then read the rules to learn a little bit more detail. And I found that to be extremely helpful. I did the tutorial, recorded that, and then I read the rules and then jumped right in, and I was like, yeah. Like, I mean, the player aids are super helpful. I didn't really find this game to be complicated at all. Now, of course, that's based off some limited playtime, but who knows, as the chapters progress, I might be like, oh yeah, okay, so how does this work? So, I don't know, that might be something to talk about at the end of the campaign. But it's so good. This game is fantastic. I have no complaints with it at all. So as of right now, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm gonna have to give this game a 10. Like, I really have, like, it's perfection in exploration, in storytelling, in combat, in gameplay. Like, it hits on all cylinders for me, in theme, world building, exploration. Like, I've always loved these kinds of like exploration books. They're just so fun to go through and see what's happening. I love the versatility with that. Love the combat, love the diplomacy. Think that that's really streamlined and elegant and unique. Love the world exploration and kind of like looking at the not the tiles, but the cards, and seeing what's there and then having encounters on those. I love the Dark Souls, King Arthur lore. It's just, there's everything here for me. So, fantastic job. I am engrossed with this, and I'm very glad it was not a disappointment. So, that's my thoughts on Tainted Grail for now. Like I said, I will probably do a discussion after the campaign, so once the series is done. And then we'll see if my thoughts change after that. But as of right now, it's a 10 out of 10. So, Like I said, that's my thoughts on Tainted Grail, Fall of Avalon. Let me know what you think of the game in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching this, and if you like this video, then click the subscribe button below to enjoy any video that I put out. And right next to that subscribe button is a little bell. Click that so you get notified of whenever I actually upload these videos. If you want to support the channel, you can definitely visit my Patreon page. The link is in the description below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.